The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Lightning was thick with tension. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, 32 years old, stood at parade rest in the corner, his piercing blue eyes fixed on the satellite imagery projected on the wall. His lean, muscular frame was relaxed, but every SEAL in the room knew that stillness masked the coiled energy of a predator waiting to strike. Jake's weathered face told stories his service record couldn't capture. The faint scar above his left eyebrow from Ramadi. The permanent squint from years of staring through scopes in desert sun. The hands that remained absolutely steady even when the rest of the world was shaking apart. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment for more stories like this. Commander Robert Hayes, a 20-year veteran with silver threading through his crew cut, stood at the front of the room. His expression was grave as he pointed to the compound on the screen. "Gentlemen, intelligence has confirmed what we've been tracking for 3 months. Tomorrow night, 3 high-value targets will be in the same location at the same time." The room erupted in whispers. This was unprecedented. General Khalid Hassan, the mastermind behind 17 attacks on American forces. General Rashid al-Mazri, responsible for the IED network that had killed dozens of coalition soldiers. General Omar Bashir, the logistics coordinator who kept the entire terrorist network supplied and operational. Their meeting in this compound, Commander Hayes continued, zooming in on the structure. A fortified villa in the mountains, approximately 2,000 meters from the nearest viable observation point. Our window of opportunity is narrow. Intelligence suggests they'll be visible in the same room for less than 2 minutes. Major Sarah Chun, the intelligence officer, stepped forward. Her tablet displayed weather data that made several operators wince. "Gentlemen, we have a significant problem. Tomorrow night's forecast shows sustained winds of 40 kilometers per hour, with gusts up to 55. The meteorology team has classified conditions as prohibitive for precision shooting." Ake's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He'd been in worse conditions. The room didn't need to know about Kandahar, where he'd made a confirmed kill at 1,800 meters in a sandstorm that had grounded every helicopter on the base. Commander Hayes turned to face his sniper. "Morrison, I need your honest assessment. Can this shot be made?" Every eye in the briefing room turned to Jake. The young SEAL had earned his reputation the hard way, through 47 confirmed kills in some of the most challenging conditions imaginable. But this was different. This was 3 targets, impossible wind conditions, and a narrow window that left zero room for error. Jake stepped forward, studying the satellite imagery with the intensity of a surgeon examining an X-ray. He noted the elevation differences, the valley that would funnel wind in unpredictable patterns, the angle of approach that would expose him to crosswinds from multiple directions. "Sir," Jake said quietly, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had stared death in the face and never blinked, "the meteorology team is right. Under normal circumstances, this shot is impossible. The wind variance alone makes conventional ballistics calculations useless." Commander Hayes nodded, disappointment flickering across his face. "Understood. We'll recommend an airstrike to—" "I didn't say I couldn't do it, sir," Jake interrupted. "I said it's impossible under normal circumstances. But if you give me 24 hours to study the wind patterns and terrain, I can make this shot." The room exploded in protests. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a fellow sniper with 6 combat tours, was the first to speak. "Jake, brother, I've seen you do incredible things, but this is suicide. 40-kilometer winds, 3 moving targets, in less than 2 minutes? No one can make that shot." Jake turned to face his friend, his expression unreadable. "Marcus, remember Helmand Province? Everyone said the shot across the ravine was impossible. 1,600 meters, gusting winds, target behind reinforced glass." Marcus fell silent. He remembered. The entire firebase had watched through spotting scopes as Jake had made a shot that defied every conventional wisdom of long-range marksmanship. The bullet had somehow found its path through chaos and eliminated a high-value target that air assets couldn't reach. Commander Hayes studied his sniper with the intensity of a commander who had sent men into impossible situations before. "Morrison, I need you to understand what you're proposing. If you miss, if any one of those 3 targets survives, they'll go underground. We may never get this opportunity again. And more American soldiers will die because of the operations these men coordinate. I understand, sir, Jake replied without hesitation. And I'm telling you I can make this shot. But I need complete freedom to choose my position, my timing, and my approach. No interference from command during execution. The silence that followed was absolute. What Jake was asking for was unprecedented. Complete operational autonomy on a mission this critical? Commander Hayes looked at Major Chun, then at the other operators in the room. This wasn't just about trusting a sniper's skill. This was about trusting one man's judgment against the collective wisdom of meteorologists, ballistics experts, and experienced combat veterans. You have 24 hours to prepare, Commander Hayes finally said. But Morrison, I want you to know something. If you take this shot and miss, if you compromise this mission, there will be consequences. And if you die out there trying to do the impossible, I'll have to write a letter to your family explaining why I authorized a suicide mission. Jake met his commander's eyes without flinching. Sir, with all due respect, I don't plan on dying. And I don't plan on missing. I plan on dancing. Spent the next 24 hours in a state of focused preparation that bordered on meditation. While other operators prepped gear and ran comms checks, Jake stood on elevated positions around the base, simply watching the wind. His spotter, Petty Officer 2nd Class David Doc Sullivan, watched with concern as Jake spent hours doing nothing but observing how dust moved, how flags rippled, how the air itself seemed to flow across the landscape in invisible rivers. Jake, Doc said quietly as they sat on a hillside that evening. Talk to me, brother. What are you seeing that the rest of us are missing? Jake didn't take his eyes off the valley below. Doc, everyone looks at wind as an obstacle. Something to compensate for, something to fight against. But my father taught me something different when I was 8 years old. He paused, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. We were hunting in Montana. I kept missing because I was trying to compensate for the wind. Adjusting my aim, calculating drift, doing everything the textbooks say to do. And I kept missing. Finally, my old man sat down next to me and said, "Son, you're fighting the wind. You need to dance with it." Doc remained silent, recognizing that his friend was sharing something deeply personal. He taught me that wind isn't random, Jake continued. It has patterns, rhythms, a language all its own. If you watch long enough, if you listen hard enough, you can feel when it's about to shift, when it's about to gust, when it's about to give you exactly the opening you need. So you're not calculating bullet drop and wind drift. Doc asked, confused. Oh, I'm calculating everything, Jake replied. But I'm also doing something that no computer can do. I'm feeling it. The wind out here, it flows through this valley in predictable patterns. Every 47 seconds, there's a lull. For about 8 seconds, the wind drops from 40 kilometers to about 25. That's my window. Doc pulled out his anemometer, the device that measured wind speed, and watched it for several minutes. Incredibly, Jake was right. Every 47 seconds, the wind died down for a brief moment before surging back to full force. But Jake, 8 seconds to make 3 shots? On 3 different targets. That's less than 3 seconds per target. And if the wind shifts even slightly, then I miss, Jake said simply. But Doc, I've been training for this my entire life. Every impossible shot, every condition that everyone said couldn't be overcome, it was all preparation for this moment. Tomorrow night, 3 of the world's most dangerous terrorists will be in the same room. And I'm going to remove them from the battlefield. That night, Jake didn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, eyes closed, visualizing the shot. He saw himself settling into position, feeling the rifle become an extension of his body. He felt the trigger, smooth and familiar under his finger. He watched, in his mind's eye, as the first bullet left the barrel, riding the wind like a surfer riding a wave. And his visualization. He didn't fight the wind. He used it. He let it carry the bullet in its natural flow, then used that same flow to guide the second and third shots. It was a dance, just as his father had taught him. And tomorrow night, he would perform it on the world's deadliest stage. The insertion was flawless. Jake and Doc were dropped 6 kilometers from the target compound, moving through the darkness with the silent efficiency of ghosts. They carried minimal gear: Jake's M110 semi-automatic sniper system, Doc's spotting scope, ammunition, water, and comms equipment. Nothing else. Every ounce mattered when you were moving through enemy territory. It took them 4 hours to reach the observation point Jake had selected. It wasn't the closest position to the target, nor was it the most obvious. But it was perfectly positioned to take advantage of the wind patterns Jake had studied. As they settled into position, Doc began setting up the spotting scope while Jake assembled his rifle with the practiced ease of someone who could do it blindfolded. The M110 was a beautiful weapon, capable of reaching out to 800 meters with devastating accuracy. But tonight, Jake was asking it to perform at nearly 3 times that distance, in conditions that would make most snipers pack up and go home. "Morrison, this is Command." Commander Hayes' voice crackled through the encrypted radio. "We have visual confirmation. All 3 targets are in the compound. They're expected to meet in the second-floor conference room at 2200 hours. That's your window." "Copy that, sir," Jake replied, his voice calm despite the enormity of what he was about to attempt. "We're in position." Doc adjusted the spotting scope, bringing the compound into sharp focus despite the 2,000-meter distance. "Jake, I've got eyes on the conference room. Large window, no curtains, good visibility. But brother, the wind is howling. Sustained 40 kilometers, gusts hitting 50. This is insane." Jake settled into his shooting position, the rifle resting comfortably in the V formed by sandbags Doc had carefully arranged. He pressed his cheek to the stock, his eye finding the scope with the familiarity of coming home. Through the powerful optics, he could see the conference room clearly, still empty but illuminated, waiting for its deadly occupants. "Morrison, meteorology is recommending abort." Commander Hayes' voice came through. "Wind conditions are worse than forecasted. I'm giving you the option to pull back." Jake's finger rested lightly on the trigger guard, not yet ready to commit. He closed his eyes, feeling the wind on his face. It was strong, aggressive, violent even. But underneath that chaos, he could feel it. The rhythm, the pattern, the dance his father had taught him to recognize all those years ago. "Negative, sir," Jake replied. "I'm taking the shot." At 2159 hours, the door to the conference room opened. General Khalid Hassan entered first, his distinctive beard and military bearing unmistakable even at this distance. He was followed by General Rashid al-Mazri, shorter and stockier, moving with the caution of a man who had survived multiple assassination attempts. Finally, General Omar Bashir walked in, talking on a satellite phone, gesturing animatedly. "All 3 targets confirmed," Doc whispered, his voice tight with tension. "Jake, they're moving around. This is going to be nearly impossible to time." "Time to wind cycle?" Jake asked, his voice absolutely calm. Doc glanced at his watch, mentally calculating. "Next lull in 23 seconds. But Jake, they're not standing still. You'll have to track and lead," Jake finished. "I know." Through his scope, Jake watched the 3 generals. They were talking, moving, occasionally crossing in front of each other. Any normal shot would wait for them to stand still. But Jake had 8 seconds during the wind lull, and he couldn't control when they would stop moving. 15 seconds to wind lull. Doc counted down. Jake, Hassan just sat down. "You won't have a clear shot." 10 seconds. Hassan stood up again, walking toward the window. Al-Mazri moved to a table, pouring drinks. Bashir was still on the phone, pacing near the back wall. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2. Jake felt it before Doc announced it. The wind died, dropping from a howling gust to a manageable breeze. Not calm, never calm, but predictable, rideable. His finger moved to the trigger. Through the scope, he watched Hassan turn toward the window. Al-Mazri raised his glass. Bashir gestured with his free hand. The first shot broke in the space between heartbeats. Jake felt rather than saw the bullet leave the barrel. He didn't wait to confirm impact. His muscle memory was already chambering the next round, his scope already shifting to the second target. Through the window, Hassan's head snapped back, a red mist appearing where his forehead had been. He collapsed, but Jake's focus had already moved that Al-Mazri was turning, reacting to Hassan's fall. For a fraction of a second, his profile was perfect. The second shot was already away, riding the same wind pattern, dancing through the air with lethal grace. The bullet took Al-Mazri in the temple just as he opened his mouth to shout a warning. He fell across the table, drinks spilling, glass shattering. Bashir dropped his phone, diving toward the floor. But Jake had anticipated the movement. The third shot was already traveling, aimed not at where Bashir was, but where he would be when the bullet arrived. The general never made it to the ground. The bullet caught him in the center of his forehead as he fell, his momentum carrying him forward into a collapse that looked almost peaceful despite its violence. Wind cycle resuming, Doc whispered, his voice filled with awe. Jake, you actually did it. 3 shots, 8 seconds, all confirmed kills. Brother, that was Morrison. Confirmed 3 targets eliminated. Commander Hayes' voice cracked through the radio, professional but unable to hide his shock. Jake was already breaking down his position, moving with the smooth efficiency of a professional who knew that the hardest part of any mission was the extraction. 3 confirmed, sir. Mission complete. Beginning exfiltration. But as they moved through the darkness, Jake paused for just a moment, looking up at the night sky. The wind had picked up again, howling across the mountains with renewed fury. Somewhere in those mountains, his father's voice seemed to whisper through the gale. You didn't fight it, son. You danced with it. The mission remained classified for years. The official report stated that 3 high-value targets were eliminated in a coordinated operation. The details of how one SEAL sniper had accomplished what every expert said was impossible remained buried in files marked top secret. But in SEAL team rooms, in training facilities, in quiet corners where warriors gathered to share stories, the legend grew. They called him the Wind Dancer, the man who had made physics bend to his will, the sniper who had taken 3 impossible shots in conditions that should have made accuracy impossible. Commander Hayes, in his official report, wrote, Staff Sergeant Morrison's actions on this night demonstrated not just exceptional marksmanship, but an almost supernatural understanding of environmental conditions. His success, when all conventional wisdom predicted failure, marks him as one of the finest snipers in naval special warfare history. But perhaps the most meaningful acknowledgement came from Lieutenant Marcus Webb, who had doubted the mission was possible. In the team room after they returned, he approached Jake with something that looked like reverence in his eyes. You proved something tonight, Marcus said quietly. You proved that impossible is just a word that people use when they haven't found the right person for the job yet. Jake shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I just did what my father taught me. I listened to the wind, found its rhythm, and danced. No, Marcus replied, shaking his head. You did something more than that. You showed us that sometimes, just sometimes, one person with enough skill and courage can change the course of history. 3 terrorists who would have killed hundreds more are gone. How many American lives did you save tonight? How many families won't get that terrible knock on their door because of what you did? Jake didn't have an answer for that. He never thought about his missions in those terms. He was a tool, a weapon that his country pointed at evil men who needed to be stopped. But as he lay in his bunk that night, sleep finally claiming him after 48 hours of sustained adrenaline, he allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. His father would have been proud, and somewhere in the mountains of Afghanistan, the wind continued to blow, dancing across the landscape, waiting for the next person brave enough to learn its language and join the dance. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been told that something was impossible only to prove everyone wrong? Have you ever had to trust your instincts when every expert said you were making a mistake? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone who needs to hear it. And if the story moved you, if it reminded you that impossible is just a challenge waiting for the right person, hit that subscribe button. Because every warrior deserves to have their story told. Every act of courage, no matter how impossible it seems, deserves to be remembered.